Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here today. My name is Steve Coleman. I'm an associate professor and state specialist in soil fertility at Ohio State. And you are officially enrolled and starting ENR 5270, soil fertility. This is a class that is essentially designed by default. It's entirely online, and it's designed to provide a broad overview about soil fertility, nutrient management, and soil health with an Ohio kind of focus. So I'll just tell you a little bit about myself so you have a better understanding in terms of who I am. But um, I've been at Ohio State for about 7 years or maybe 8 years at this point, and I've taught this course ever since. We recently went to an online offering, although we did have kind of a remote component for basically since I've started teaching this. I have a three-way split in my appointment. So I'm based up in Worcester on the Worcester campus, and I mostly do research and extension. So I'm 50% extension and 35 research, basically 85% research and extension, providing support and programming for all things kind of soil fertility, nutrient management issues. And then a small part of my appointment is the teaching, and that's what, of course, I'm here today to talk about. And so we've got a really nice lineup, a number of guest speakers, and I'm excited in general in terms of actually providing this class online. I've thought quite a bit about how to do things better that we were doing not as well as we could have with kind of the video linking. And so when we used to give it an in-person instruction with the Worcester and the Columbus campus. So this provides a little bit more flexibility for your schedule, of course, and for some of the things that we can do. Okay, so I'm going to jump into it. This video is just going to be talking about the course itself, and we're going to go over the syllabus. It shouldn't take too long. As a broad overview, of course, you can read, but we're talking about this class providing principles of soil fertility, plant nutrition, nutrient management, mostly in managed ecosystems. And the bias here will be agricultural systems, often Ohio specific, but not necessarily. And a lot of the work that I do work in specialty crops in some extent, but large part of what I do is working in field crops or agronomic crops, corn, soybeans, wheat, small grains, pastures or hay crops, essentially alfalfa, et cetera, et cetera. So, so we'll talk a lot about those, although not exclusively, of course. We do want to place a lot of this context, a lot of the information that we're giving you in kind of a contemporary context. Ohio is really a very interesting point right now in terms of nutrient management, a lot of water quality issues, a lot of other things in terms of urban sprawl and population pressures in terms of, this interface between kind of the urban interface and agricultural. We're a very populated state for being in the Midwest, of course, or in the Corn Belt. And so that provides kind of a suite of things. So it's a really interesting juxtaposition or just place to be at a time to think about fertility and nutrient management. And my goal is to help you understand how important these issues are and give you some appreciation and understanding. Okay, and so broadly defined course outcomes describe, at the end of this course, you should be able to describe primary factors that govern nutrient cycling and behavior in soil. So that's kind of a basic conceptual piece to this, and it really provides the foundation for soil fertility, right? You should identify specific considerations, key constraints, et cetera, with the cycling and management of some of the key macronutrients that we typically manage in agricultural systems. You should be able to diagnose common nutrient deficiencies in some common crops, develop lime and fertilizer recommendations, and then identify soil and crop management strategies that improve soil health. Okay, so this is by no means an exhaustive list, but these are some of the key pieces that we'll talk about and cover throughout the semester. Okay. So in terms of textbooks, There is no required textbook. The Soil Fertility and Fertilizers by Haviland, in its 8th edition, this is essentially the Bible, or the whatever the resource, the best textbook that's out there for kind of soil fertility. It's really an essential reference. It was updated in 14, so that's getting kind of dated now. But I tell you, a lot of that information is still highly relevant, and in some ways, soil fertility is an old field. It's an old science, been around for a long time, and some of these concepts really don't change so much. So that's a great textbook. I strongly recommend you pick that up if you're able to, just as a supplement, not required. Okay, and then this other one, this for plant nutrition, Manual for Improving. This is really more of a practical applied for nutrient management, put on by the International Plant Nutrition Institute. So there's plenty other things out there. Of course, there's not there's not a lack of other references and texts, and this is just a good place to kind of get started. Okay. So obviously we are completely online. There's going to be no in-person meeting for this class, so it's totally a asynchronous course. All the lectures will be recorded just like this one ahead of time and posted online on Carmen, and you'll be able to view whenever is convenient for you. Okay. Of course, you need a computer, need Microsoft Office for some of the assignments and whatnot. Let's talk about grading. Okay. So this is a 5,000 level class, and if you've never been in one, that basically means there's both undergraduates, upper level undergraduates, and graduate students enrolled. Every year there are a mix, and the ratio depends, but this year we have about say maybe 2/3 of the class is undergrads and about 1/3 is grad students. Okay, so I've simplified this from previous years, but really for undergrads, it's pretty simple now. It's 50% of your grade is from quizzes, and 10% of your grade, 50% of your grade from assignments. And so quizzes will be taken on Carmen. They're going to be timed quizzes that we have about a 3-day window to kind of take. It's going to be at a 10 points each, and you can take up to 6. So there will be 6 posted total. You're more than welcome to take all 6, and then we will essentially drop your lowest score and report the 5 highest. So that's basically 5 quizzes out of 10 possible points for 50% of your grade. Okay, so there's going to be 100 points total assigned. And then for assignments, I've increased the number of these, but I think that this is going to be an important piece to the class. And of course, it's 50% of your grade. So this is going to help keep us all on track a little bit in terms of viewing content and kind of putting, on mostly a weekly basis, 15-week class, there's 10 assignments. So it's basically 10 out of the 15 weeks, you're going to have some sort of assignment to do. And that's just going to keep us all a little bit more honest in terms of keeping up with the material and the flow, et cetera, et cetera. I view the quizzes and the assignments, they both, of course, test comprehension, but the quizzes really test more of the concepts, and the assignments test more of the kind of the practical applicability. I highly value applied information. I know that, especially this semester, you all are going to get kind of zoomed and PowerPointed, to death, because that's, unfortunately the reality we're living in right now. But I want to try, and through the, even in a virtual context, to provide some really applied skills and thinking about, this world, not just from a set of PowerPoint stacks that people are talking at you, but you being able to kind of go out and do some things, and thinking of this class as, a kind of a springboard for you to understand more of these issues and gain some skills that you can take out into the real world. Okay, so that's really kind of my hope. I digress. I was talking about grading, so let me go back to that in a second. But For grad students essentially have the same responsibilities as undergrads, except for the fact that we have a outreach video that's due essentially at the end of the semester. This outreach video is very, very important, and it's just a single assignment, but I believe that it should represent a significant effort on your part. And so we'll talk about that in just a second. One of the things that is slightly confusing, so I want to point out directly, and I kind of put some convoluted text in the syllabus right here on notes on graduate student grading. So I don't have a great ability in Carmen to go and make these assignments that will often be graded, almost universally graded in Carmen, to make undergrads 5 points and graduates 4 points. So if you look at the distribution here for grad students, you can see it's 10 same assignments, but instead of 5% or 5 points each, essentially it's 4 points each. Okay, so I don't have the technical know-how, or really I don't think a good ability to do that in Carmen. So we're essentially going to make a big adjustment at the end of the semester. So we're going to take, for graduate students, you have essentially 10 assignments that are worth 4 points each. Okay. In Carmen, they'll be graded on a 5-point scale. And so what I will do at the end of the semester is essentially lop off 20% by, or multiplying your final grade, your sum of all of your assignments by 0.8 or 80%. And so that's essentially, it's not, taking points away. It's just going to reduce the average of the weighted average. Essentially, it's going to reduce that average of how many total points are offered. So it's going to reduce it to 40%. I definitely did not say that as clear as I could, but hopefully just looking at, the comparison of the undergrad credit versus graduate credit, you can understand that quizzes are 50% for both, assignments are 50% for the undergrad. So that essentially completes your 100%. That's the whole course. For graduate students, it's 40% and then 10% for the outreach video. 100 total points for both graduate and undergrad, with the difference being that the graduate students, again, have this outreach video to do, okay? If there's any questions on that, please let me know, but hopefully this is relatively self-explanatory. The main point is for graduate students, when you're in Carmen, you take, say you take the first 2 quizzes and say you score, or sorry, the first 2 assignments, and you scored, 5 out of 5 points on each of them. So you say, oh, great, I have 10 total points there. It's actually really going to be a total of 8 points and not 10 points, because everything is getting scaled back by 20%. So sorry that's so confusing, but there's really no better way I've figured out how to do this in Carmen. So this is kind of the reality of what we're dealing with. Okay, questions on that, please email me. I'm happy to try to clarify that. I know that wasn't particularly that clear. So quizzes. Okay, so rather than having 2 or 3 midterms, we're going to do quizzes that are essentially can be considered exams that are just smaller in scale. They're going to cover material for every 2 to 3 weeks, and the quiz will not be comprehensive. So it's essentially going to cover. We might weave in and building on additional concepts, but specifically those questions for a specific quiz are going to be from the material from 2 to 3 weeks, until that last quiz. So the idea of that is trying to make the information that you're responsible for more manageable. These are essentially open book quizzes. They're mostly going to be, they will all be in Carmen. They will all be timed, and the timing might depend on the quiz. So I'll let you all know ahead of time with all those. They're not questions like, which nutrient is this? And then you pick N, P, or K. They're questions that make you think a little bit, and the idea is that you should have some command of the material to be able to make, a well-educated decision and, select the proper thing. So the proper answer. So it's very important because this is completely online. I will not, there's no makeup points. There's no makeup quizzes, makeup assignments. I'm giving you what the classes, I have all the deadlines listed. The class is right here, ladies and gentlemen. So it's up to you as a functioning adult in our society to make sure you're making deadlines. And I will put all of the deadlines and all this in Carmen this coming week, and you will have it all, and it'll be transparent there for you. So, it's not that I'm not flexible. If you have conflicts or something comes up, something always comes up every semester, a student has something or whatever, I'm happy to make arrangements, but you need to let me know, before the night that the quiz is due, or before the night the assignment. So you need to let me know about this and just communicate. And you can do that through Carmen. You can email me directly. It doesn't really matter to me. I'll respond to both. Okay, so there's the grading. Again, I'm going to move on. If you have any questions, please let me know about this. I'm happy to answer anything. Here are the quizzes. Again, the deadlines here. Everything is due on a Friday. It's going to be basically Friday at midnight. I do that just so we have weekends for a reason, and I know a lot of us work on the weekends, but trying to preserve this and constrain it to the work week, your school. So essentially, the 6 quizzes and the due dates are laid out here. The assignments, 10 of them total, and the due dates are laid out here. And so, you're welcome to log this into your calendar. Again, I'm going to put these into Carmen in the Carmen calendar, so you'll have that. Okay, for graduate students, I will be sending out an email that more specifically, or maybe even recording a video that kind of outlines what the whole point of this outreach video, and I'll provide some good examples that I think, but I think that this is a very, very important skill that we fully understand as something that a lot of us would love to do and has the potential for a lot of impact, but sometimes those skills are lacking. And so this is an opportunity to provide grad students who are moving into their professional careers after this, or maybe into a PhD program or whatever. But there's not very many professions where videos aren't of interest and aren't important. And so thinking about what you're going to do here, what your topic area is, developing a topic area and a scope of the video. These again are going to be succinct, no more than 5 minutes long. Who's your audience? What are you trying to achieve? What's your objective or objectives? And thinking through this. And so again, this is going to be 10% of the grade, and we want you to do a very nice job. A simple voiceover PowerPoint that you kind of drone through a few slides, hit record, and then call good. That's not really what we're after. We're after things where we're actually taking photographs and taking video, B-roll footage, assembling them into some sort of kind of quasi-professional. I mean, I realize I'm going to be realistic in my expectations here, but I'm also giving you a heads up that, this is the expectations, the bar is essentially high for this. So essentially in a month, we need your topic and your title. In 2 weeks after that, we need an abstract of your outreach video. 2 weeks after that, we need essentially kind of a quasi-detailed outline of your script. And then a month after that, the final video is going to be due. We are going to, we'll get into this in a second, but essentially we're going to post every single one of these videos, and the class collectively is going to consume them, watch them, and be responsible for some of the content in there. So this is, a chance for you to really kind of dig your teeth into something as a graduate student. Hopefully aligned with your interests, with your career path, something that's going to help you out, get you a chance to, dig into something and learn a little bit more. Okay. Grades. So that's all I'm going to say about grades. Our scale is here. This is a typical Ohio State University scale. So if you're familiar with that, then I shouldn't say anymore. We're all busy. I try my best to provide feedback and grading within, say, 1 to 2 weeks after it's due. I believe that I will be able to do this, but exceptions happen, of course, and I try my best to be prompt with email responses, okay? There's no, moving into participation attendance, there's no set requirement in terms of you need to be logged in this many hours or you need to do this or that. Folks, if you want to be successful in the class, you need to be logging in at least once per week to Carmen. I mean, it's going to be multiple times per week if you want to get a respectable grade or even a passing grade, okay? Some common language I'm sure you've seen in other syllabi that you've encountered this semester or in previous semesters, but thinking about tone and civility and writing style, we're just trying to keep things professional. And this is not a text message forum where you're texting with your buddies or whatever, your friends. Keep things professional, please. When you're writing emails, use and when you're answering questions, we need like proper punctuation and just the tone, set the tone. So even though you might be watching this video in your PJs, it doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to keep this kind of as you otherwise would in a professional type of classroom setting. Okay, so again, academic integrity. There's a lot of potential, of course, for cheating and for borrowing information in an online context. We've been given kind of strict marching orders in terms of what that means and what we need to do, what we're essentially required to do if we suspect this. I'm going to leave this policy here for you all to read. I'm not going to spend time on this. I'm going to make the assumption that you all are adults and you make the decisions that you make. We will, if we find evidence of cheating, we're going to pursue that and follow kind of these standard operating procedures. So just please be aware of that, and there's plenty of resources here. Okay. Again, there's a lot of, we live in very challenging times right now. And of course, there's a lot of news and a lot of things talking about, race relations and sexual harassment, et cetera, et cetera. We're not going to have a lot of student-to-student interaction in this class. So these things are maybe a little bit lesser concern for me for this class in particular, but not to state not to try to de-emphasize this or whatever, but we need to understand, again, we are trying to foster as a university, and certainly in this class, a welcoming and supportive environment. And that goes for, political views and race and gender, and in the context of, mental health. These are really important and serious things that we need to pay attention to. Okay. So again, your mental health is important to us as a university. It's important to me as an instructor. We understand that it can be very challenging to be a student. Please let me know if you're having issues. There's lots of services that are at your disposal. It's a large university, and with that we have a lot of resources that you have access to. So please understand that. Reach out to me or other people. We just encourage people to take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Okay. I'm going to again scroll through some of this, and I'm going to get to the course schedule, and this is what I'm going to wrap up with. Okay, so essentially I've done something a little bit different this year, and I'll talk about that in a second, but really the course follows that Havlin textbook relatively well. Okay, it's not perfectly aligned, but if you're thinking about this, where essentially weeks 1 through weeks 10, the first 10 weeks out of the 15 weeks is really talking about the individual nutrients, the cycling, and the things that we need to kind of pay attention to or be aware of with each one of these. And this is more of the conceptual piece of the class, okay? That being said, we do weave a lot of things in terms of contemporary issues, particularly with nitrogen, with phosphorus, et cetera. I've got a whole week dedicated to the tri-state fertilizer recommendations, okay? So there's plenty of kind of real world experience in there. From weeks 11 and onward, we talk more about uh, conservation practices and soil health and things that we know influence soil fertility and nutrient management in very real ways. But this is an opportunity for us to talk about the interface of, say, tillage practices or crop rotations, cover crops, use of manure, et cetera, soil health testing, and actually indicators, emerging indicators, new and developing indicators. So we're going to cover a whole bunch of things, and nutrient management, variable rate technologies, precision ag with soil fertility and nutrient management. So there's a whole kind of suite of things this, say, the last third of the class, okay? One of the things that is going to be different, and I'll mention it right now because I think it's very important, is the second week. We're going to, normally I would talk about kind of taking soil samples, evaluating soil fertility somewhere about 2/3 into the semester. Well, this year I'm shaking things up a little bit, hopefully for the better. Hopefully there won't be too many bumps with this, but I'd like for every student, if possible, within the next few weeks to pull a soil sample. And that can be from any number of different places, but we'd like for you to pull a soil sample, submit that. Again, I'm going to post, this is a complicated endeavor because it's online. I'm going to post all these details in the next couple days to walk you all through this. But essentially, we want to have you pull a soil sample, get that soil sample tested, and then follow those analysis throughout the semester and have you kind of look at that, compare and contrast your samples with other student samples. Again, plenty more about that, but it's with the recognition that really pulling a soil sample and submitting it to a commercial testing lab is really kind of our first window into soil fertility and into understanding what type of soil we have and how we need to manage it. Okay, so we'll talk plenty more about all of that later and throughout the semester, but I just want to give you all the heads up that that's going to be something that we're going to be asking of you, slight, quote unquote, requiring of you to do this. So again, more details to come, but hopefully you can take a look at this, and I'm not going to go through week by week with this, but you can understand that this class in general is talking about, there's a lot of kind of contemporary issues mixed in this very applied piece. Again, my bias is really going to be agronomic systems and primarily in Ohio, but that's certainly not all we're going to talk about. But I'm very excited. I mean, this is what I do for a living. There's a lot of people that come into contact and think about fertility and nutrient management from an agricultural perspective, from an environmental perspective, from a food and food production perspective, a food system perspective. It's a really nice interface, and I'm excited to share this with you. And I just want to say, welcome to the class, and we'll get into it right away. So I'll post this, and then, there'll be other videos kind of launching off the material in the course following this. So I'll end here. Thanks for your time.